While your vision of Maine might be remote hiking in the mountains, a slow coastal lifestyle, or even just a weekend or summer getaway, for the people who are from the area, we don't always view life in Maine this way. The reality is, there's a variety of reasons why people commonly choose to move out of state. And while we created this channel to educate you about living in the southern Maine area, we can't always just tell you about the positive aspects. In order to give you a raw, honest insight into life here, we have to tell you about the negative aspects as well. Now, if you were to search Maine coastal town aesthetic on Pinterest, you're going to see a lot of pictures of lighthouses on rocky coastlines, quaint downtown areas, and women wearing linen pants and striped navy sweaters. And to be honest, if you come to coastal southern Maine in the summer, life does look like that. But if you come here during any of the other 9 months of the year, I'd be lying if I said Maine looked anything like that. It's no secret that Maine is a huge vacation state, but let me tell you a little secret. Life here is not like your week-long annual trip to celebrate the 4th of July. So today, I'm not here to tell you about the broader aspects of the state like the cold weather. I'm going to dive into some of the deeper issues that people don't commonly talk about enough. So let's get into it. By the way, my name's Margaret. My dad, Michael, and I are born and raised Mainers and local real estate agents making videos to educate you about living in the southern Maine area. This channel is all about living in southern Maine, and if you're thinking about buying, selling, or relocating to the area, feel free to check out some of our free downloadable resources below. So why is everyone leaving Maine? Well, for one, there's not a whole lot of young people. Now, this is a fairly big topic of conversation for people who are still in, high school. People in high school, people that are college age, this is just kind of a topic of conversation that starts to get brought up. You start asking your friends, do you want to live in the state or do you want to move out of state? And for a lot of people, they want to move out of state and potentially come back, down the road. But for a lot of kids and young adults, they want to, move to the city, or they want to be around other young people, or they want to be able to go out. And, as far as going out in Maine goes, a lot of the businesses are unfortunately seasonal. Now, that's not necessarily the case if you go up to Portland. You can go out in Portland, really year round. But for those smaller towns in Maine, especially ones that are along the coast that rely really heavily on tourism, a lot of them shut down for, a few months during the winter, or there's a lot fewer options to go out. And so that definitely sways people's decisions as well. Maine has an older population that takes up a huge chunk of our demographic. I can see if I can find, the exact statistics and insert them here, but it's fairly common knowledge that Maine has an older population. And so when young people are getting out of high school and college, they're trying to figure out where they want to move to. A lot of people are looking to connect with other people who are of similar ages and have the similar interests as them. And a lot of times, when you're looking at the demographic of Maine, people start to get concerned if they're going to find that. Going off of that, the next thing I want to talk about is the fact that the pace of life in Maine is really slow. And if you're looking to move to somewhere that has a slow pace of life, if you're looking for a vacation house, if you're retiring, this might be a great thing for you. It might be something that you're looking for, and Maine might be a really great option. But for a lot of people who really like kind of the hustle and bustle of the city, this isn't really a great fit. So for people who are born in the area or moved to the area and they're graduating high school or college, or just people that are really sick of how slow things move here and they want to move somewhere a little bit more populated, where there's more things going on, where things aren't so seasonal, Maine being such a slow pace of life kind of state might not really be a great fit for people. And I've also known this to be a huge factor for why people don't want to live in the state. The next thing I want to talk about is the job market. Now, this is just as applicable as it is for somebody who's 18 years old as somebody who's 55 years old. The job market in Maine is smaller than it is in other areas. Maine has, maybe 1.5 million people in the entire state. There's fewer jobs in the state, whereas we have a lower population. We don't have a lot of big cities. For me, for example, I live in Wells. The biggest cities near me, Sanford has, 22,000 people. Biddeford has like 22,000 people. Saco's about the same. Portland is the biggest city in the entire state of Maine. It's about 30 minutes north of me, and that has about 67,000 people. And while that sounds like a lot, keep in mind that the bottom two counties of Maine are the most populated. We hold like a third of the entire population of the state of Maine. So most of the people are down here. Further north than that, things get a little bit more sparse. But generally speaking, even though we have Portland near us, the job market is a lot smaller. So for people who live, for example, in Wells or Sanford, you're gonna have a 30 to 45-minute commute up to Portland if you work in the city. Now, if you work across the border in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, depending on where you live in the general area, it could be another 30-minute commute. Now, if you live right over the border, it's 10 minutes. But if you're going to be driving into the city, which a lot of people are, you have to think about your commute time when you're moving to the area if you already have a job lined up. Now, there are a lot of people that also drive all the way into Boston for work every day. That's about an hour and a half. If you live in coastal York County, Maine, and you can get right on the highway fairly easily, it's going to be about an hour and a half. 2 hours if you live a little bit more inland. So that's a huge commute. But for certain people who have very specific or niche jobs, or they have a great job but it's in the city, keep in mind your commute is going to be fairly long. It's not like that for everybody. Don't get me wrong, we still have tons of small local businesses, but as far as having options to apply for whatever field you work in, you might have to look in a fairly large radius, especially if you have a really niche job. And that's, again, another deterring factor for younger people who are thinking about moving to Maine, or for people who lived in Maine their entire lives, why they want to move out of state. The job market is not as good as it is in maybe some of the other neighboring states. And lastly, let's talk about the cost of living in Maine. Maine is expensive. New England in general is kind of notoriously one of the more expensive areas of the country to live. So Maine, fortunately, is the least expensive of the New England states to live in. So if you're moving up here for work, if you have to, if you're relocating, or if you just really want to live in New England and you're looking for the most affordable option, that would be Maine. But if you're coming from somewhere like Texas, be prepared for kind of a shock as far as how high the cost of living is here, how high the prices of real estate are. It's just definitely something that you have to get kind of used to. For me, as somebody who was born and raised in the area, I'm used to it, right? Like the prices of everything around me don't really faze me because it's how it's been my entire life. But for my friends who live out of state, or for people, my friends specifically who live out of New England, they think, it's kind of outrageous. So for people who, live out of state and they think that these prices are really outrageous, it kind of depends on where in the country you're from, how much you're used to paying for different things. It might be more of a shock to you than it is for other people, but it definitely is, a huge reason for why a lot of people, regardless of your age, choose to move out of state, because the cost of living is higher than a lot of other parts of the country. While there are a bunch of different reasons why people choose to leave the state of Maine, those are just a few of the main contributors that I've noticed as somebody who grew up here and works in real estate and works with people, moving to and from the state constantly. Making a move anywhere is not a decision that you should be taking lightly, and it's good to do your research on, all of the good and bad aspects of the state, not even just, the cost of living or the job market, but even little things too that we didn't cover today, such as, is the weather different than what I'm used to, experiencing all 4 seasons, what kind of wildlife, bugs, ticks, what are you going to experience up here? What does day-to-day life look like? All of that's really important to research ahead of time. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. All of our information is down below, and we'll see you next time.